Hello and welcome to another episode of ACTPod, our story, our continent. You know, as we do it here, we always have conversation around the social sector, around some of the things that some amazing people are doing in the social sector, impacting the world one day at a time, changing lives, and how we're just go about building a sustainable world. My name is Omoye Oregan, and I will be your host on this conversation today. Today, we'll be having a very beautiful conversation around the tech industry, around women working in tech. And I'm very excited because I have an amazing woman in the studio with me. She has been working in the tech space, working with women in the tech industry for the past 20 years. It's been a long time. And when I met her, I was like, no way you've been working 20 years on this. But I'm so excited to have Oreoluwa Lesi on this episode of ActPod. Today we'll be talking about her work with WTEC, and you find out what WTEC is when we get into the conversation. It's a non-profit. We get to know about them, what they've been doing, what she's been doing with the organization, and how they've been impacting a lot of young women, across the country, and I dare to say even in Africa. So welcome with me, Oreoluwa Lesi. I hope I got the Leshi correctly.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
I'm an Edo girl, so
Thank you. Thanks
you're
so
welcome
much.
to ActPod. So good to have you here.
Thank
I'm
you.
so excited to. We already had like a pep talk before this episode recording started, and it was already exciting to get to know a bit about your journey, about your story, and the
Yes.
things that you have been doing.
Yes.
So now I want to get into it. You've been working for the past 20 years in the tech space, but you said you've been working about 15 years in this non-profit. What's WTech? Let's start with what's WTech. I've been
Okay.
saying WTech since.
Yes. So WTEC is the Women's Technology Empowerment Center. We're a
Okay.
nonprofit organization based in Lagos, Nigeria, but then working across the country and even in other parts of the continent. And our focus is to help close the gender gap in tech. And we're doing that by encouraging and inspiring young girls to want to pursue careers, not just in tech, but the wider STEM. Though now we've expanded to STEAM as well with the arts.
With the
Exactly.
arts,
Yes. Because, I mean, the figures show that there's an underrepresentation of women in the space. So it's important to make sure that girls are encouraged to want to pursue careers and that women who start careers actually stay so that they become role models for younger girls. Because if girls don't see women with successful careers, then they might be less encouraged to want to pursue this careers in this space.
Awesome. So at this moment, I'm very interested in wanting to know what led you to working in the tech space, working with young women in technology. So can you just take us on a brief journey into
Okay.
what gave birth to WTech?
Okay, so it's a long story, but I'll try and keep it short.
Yes.
Exactly, yes, I have to do that.
All right.
It started from my own journey. They always say that, you provide solutions for problems that maybe you have had or you've experienced. And so when I was in secondary school, I, of course, was thinking about what I wanted to do in the future. And I was good in different subjects, and it was a bit hard for me to align my interest with a possible career, something that I'd want to do for the rest of my life. I just kind of danced around. And then until I ended up with economics, because I spoke to different friends of my parents, and one professor in particular from Unilag looked at my SSC results and said, wow, you're really good in maths, you're really good in economics. And so I decided to pursue a career in economics. But while I was waiting for my university admission, I decided to go to computer school. So that was the first time that I became really knowledgeable and aware about the potential
Can I
that.
ask what year that was?
Whoa. Okay, that was 1992.
Okay, computer
Yes,
school. Guess
yes,
1992.
yes.
I was not born then.
Oh my
so,
goodness.
Go ahead. I can
Yes.
just imagine.
Oh my goodness. Yes. We used to call it computer school back
Wow.
then. Yes. So I went to computer school and I signed up for a diploma in computer programming. And so I was learning what is considered really old now, basic programming, COBOL programming. But for me, it was like, wow, like I can tell the computer to do something and it can actually do it. And so I just started exploring different options. I was learning how to write programs, and just exploring the ways that, it could benefit me. And then also a family business, that we ran. And then when I went to university, I started studying economics, quite all right. But then I started a business typing essays for other students. And I realized, whoa, with my laptop, I can make money. I don't have to go out and, do like physical labor or a job where I'm on my feet. I can actually just use technology. So I started thinking about other women's lives because for me, I've always been very passionate about women. I see, women going to work, they come back home, they have another job to do in the house, looking after the home, looking after the children, make sure homework is done. And I started thinking about how can technology help to make women's lives easier, help to generate an income, and just provide, opportunities that they might not otherwise have. So that's how I now started I started doing some reading about it and seeing that the figures were really bad in terms of women's access to computers, women's access to the internet, women working in technology. It was so low, and I started reading about the different reasons, and I thought, I think this is a space that I would like to go into. And so yeah, so I decided to do a master's in information systems, and then I started working in a nonprofit, looking at how women and men were using technology and also exploring the gender gap. This was in the US. So I did that for a few years until I moved back home. And at a point, I started volunteering. I was volunteering with different groups in the US and also when I moved back to Nigeria. And I think one thing just led to another thing. And I started to think that, yeah, this is something that, there's a big problem, there's a big need, and someone needs to do something about it. Though I didn't think that someone
Was
was
you?
me. No, I didn't. I didn't,
Wow.
yeah.
But then eventually now you found out that it's you and you've been doing this for the past
Yes,
years.
exactly. Yes, yes, yes. I had a blog, very active blog back then. So I was just sharing on my blog about one of my volunteering opportunities, which was for women in the Caucasus region, Armenia, Georgia. And I was just said, oh, I wish there was something similar for young women in Nigeria. Just thinking that, oh, I hope somebody can start something like this. And someone responded that, well, all right, if you decide to start something like this, I'd be happy to support you. And I think that's when for me the penny dropped. All along, I'd been thinking that this is something that someone else, should do. And that was the first time I thought, oh, maybe this is something that I can do. So I just started small, very nervous. And I just started working with some girls in a secondary school, going there every Friday, just teaching them how to use the computer. Very basic, but just seeing their feedback, seeing how initially they were really scared, even scared to touch a keyboard in case they damage something, and just seeing their growing confidence, over the weeks. And by the end of it, they were like, wow, that they never could have thought that they could use a computer, they could publish something, they could have their own blog, they could have their own words, out there in the world for people to read. And so I think that really sowed the seed for what became WTEC. I thought, beyond the technology skills, there was just that confidence that the girls had that I thought was very, very empowering.
Wow. Wow.
Yes.
I mean, it's so beautiful just listening to you, just taking us through that journey that started off with an observation. I'd say this is what's going on. There's this discrepancy. There's this gap, and that observation leading to a curiosity, and then you doing your research, and then getting to work with an organization, and of course journeying down to now owning your own nonprofit, and also just in the baby steps you had to take from volunteering to learning more about what was happening to asking questions, and you're answering the questions yourself by starting off something and starting small.
Yes.
I think that everyone who is, I think people on different levels with regards to, oh, I have this passion, oh, I have a desire, oh, I'm running a nonprofit, oh, I've been there for a while. Everyone can learn something from everything that you have shared. And it's very exciting to hear you. And we'll definitely, cut it into bits and pieces in terms of how you have been doing this for the last couple of years. But one question I just wanted to ask, and this is off script, you have you said you because you said 1992 and it just blew my mind off because I was just trying to imagine what computer was in 1992 in Nigeria, you know, and you've worked through different generations in terms of the tech space. How would you describe it from where it was in 1992 to where we're at? What is it mind blowing? I'm just trying to just is it mind blowing to see that we have I mean the growth has
Yeah.
been great so far.
It's been phenomenal. I mean, back then, it was just like a novelty thing. My parents were both engineers. My dad was an electrical engineer and he was a person of gadgets. So we always had different gadgets in the house. So we've actually had our first computer in the house since the 80s. We had a Commodore 64 and you'd hook it up to your TV screen and we'd play games with it. I'm sure there were other things you could do with it, but we just played games until we got another computer. I think it was an HP, but it was Windows 3.1. I remember that very well. And none of the programs we're using now was really there. We had WordPerfect, Lotus as the database. It was very different, but it was expensive. It was something that it was not accessible. It was not in every home. I mean, we had it because my father was an engineer and he was interested in those things, even though we didn't really use it for anything concrete. For us, we were just playing and having fun. But one thing I know now is that in play, you are learning.
Yes.
You're learning and it's sparking of a curiosity. And maybe for me, because the computer was in the house, I may have naturally gravitated towards, deciding to go to computer school because it wasn't something that was so far off. But now society has completely changed. I mean, there's not a question of do I need to learn how to use a computer or not because they're everywhere. They're in our phones, our tablets, and we have to use technology, even if it's to access different services. I think very few people will go to the bank if they have to because they can do so many things online. All that didn't exist back then. And of course, now you have a whole new set of jobs that have been created by technology that is, everywhere and cheaper than it was back then.
I'm certain that this would definitely influence your advocacy because I mean, you're not just, we just have this mindset back home here in Africa that, tech is just some very, I don't know how to describe it, but it's for some select kind.
Yeah.
But like you said, even in the games you're learning. So
Yes.
it just changes the face of advocacy because of your exposure at that time. Today you can talk a lot about technology. So we cannot restrict our girls. And I think that influences a lot what you do.
Yes.
So let's get back to the script.
All right.
And I want to talk about the fact that women are underrepresented when it comes to technology. How has WTEC contributed to the greater diversity and inclusion in the technology field? What have you done with the work you do at WTEC on this?
Okay, so when we started, we decided that we would like to focus on girls and young women because if we are looking at filling up a space in the workplace, it's important to look at that age because they're still thinking about what they want to do in the future. They're not yet in a career. They're not yet in university already on a path. And also they're open, to ideas. A lot of the research shows that one of the reasons why a lot of girls don't think about careers in tech or maybe STEM is partly maybe lack of role models, but also a lot of social stereotypes as well. And this stereotyping is very subtle. It might be little comments that a family member or a parent might make. It might be messages they're getting from books, that they read, films that they watch where the scientist or the technologist is usually a guy. It just sends subtle messages that, oh, this space is really not for you. So there's a lot that they're contending with. But when you are younger, you are less aware of these things and more open to anything, to exploring. So we decided that we're going to focus on girls. So we started our first camp in 2008 with 15 girls and just bringing them together, showing them about using technology. Back then it was just a computer. So this is how you turn on a computer. This is what you can do with a computer. You can create files. You can do this. Then we brought women who are working in tech to talk to them. Then we went on excursions. And those things really opened up their minds. So by the end of the camp, they were saying, I never thought about a career in technology before because it just was not maybe my realm of possibility. But now I'm seriously thinking about it. Of course, there's still a journey between thinking about it as like a 14, 15-year-old to actually being in the workplace. So we realized that we needed to build a pipeline. So the camp is great for inspiring, encouraging the girls, and creating awareness of a new set of career opportunities. But we needed to provide opportunities for them to build up on the skills and the interest. So we started our WTEC Academy, which is our after-school clubs. So we're working in different schools in Lagos and other states in the country, where we're able to work with the girls every week. So it's a weekly club. We're there. And we try to make it fun. We try to make like tech fun and engaging, so that every week they know that they can come to this club and they are learning, whether it's Scratch, whether it's building mobile applications, whether it's designing websites, whether it's photography, whether it's making films, or Python programming. So they have that whole year with us. So what we're seeing after these years of these interventions is that, well, based on our feedback from our alumni, we have about 83% of our alumni who have told us that they were inspired to pursue a career in STEM because of a WTEC program. And that's quite a big deal. We have about 52% of our alumni who started making money in some way. So whether that's with maybe like photography skills, they're able to start taking pictures, or they're able to help maintain people's websites. But we have about 53% who were actually able to start making an income with the knowledge they got from WTEC. So I think that, those kind of figures have been really, really encouraging. And it's shown that you can actually expose girls to something. And then if you support them, over the next few years, you can actually see them moving towards, a possible future in that space. For the girls who decide that they don't want to pursue a career in tech or maybe STEM, they all say that they're using the knowledge they got. So whether that's, I want to become a fashion designer, but I'm using tech in that. I want to become a lawyer, but I've actually seen the possibilities of tech in my career as a lawyer. I mean, we consider that a win as well.
Awesome. So interesting to hear what you've been doing at WTEC. Now let's talk a bit about the challenges, because I know that in doing all of this, sounds really exciting what you're doing, but I'm certain that you've experienced a number of challenges in the couple of years that you've done this. I want to talk about challenges from two perspectives. Now, the general challenges you face running this nonprofit, and also the challenge with accessing young women in marginalized communities. How have you been able to navigate through these challenges?
Okay. So, general challenges, when we started at the start of an economic recession, a worldwide recession. So funding was not as easy as I thought. I thought, I would just write proposals and the grants would just
And
be
the money would
flowing.
just start coming in.
Flowing in, because I like to write. So I thought, I can write very good proposals. That didn't happen. We were a brand new organization. So donors were worried about giving us money, in case they take the money and they run. Exactly, yeah. So we realized that we had to just hunker down, do what we could with the funds we had, build a track record, and just see what would happen. So I would say, yes, that's path for funding. That was a challenge, but I mean, we were just, innovative, scrappy, I would say, to just go through those years. In terms of running an organization, I think I did not bargain for everything that is part of running an organization. I was focused solely on the training. I'm going to be training these girls or these young women, and that was my focus. But of course, when you're building an organization, you're hiring people, you're managing people, you're paying people salaries, you're making sure that the organization is growing, you're making sure you have structures in place. And I was not always well equipped. But I think as any maybe young entrepreneur, you just kind of have to learn. So there was a very steep learning curve, and you just basically have to learn as you're going along. And everyone thinks, because you are the leader, you know what you are doing. So yeah. So you're trying to just basically, walk the path until you feel the parts. So I think, those are some of the challenges. In terms of your second question
Yes.
about getting the girls, how do we get the
In
girls?
marginalized communities, how do you reach
Okay.
them?
Yes. All right. So we do that in several ways. We work with partners. So when we first started, we would reach out to other organizations that were already working in different communities. And that was an easy way because they already have their groups of young people who they are working with. So we would reach out to organizations who are working with girls or young women and see, oh, how can we come in? How can we provide some training for the girls in your community? So that was one of the ways that we would start. And over the years, we've built a network of partners. So we're able to do that. We have communities who reach out to us. So when we moved into Ogun State, for instance, it was a gentleman who heard about WTEC and thought the young girls in my community need to have something like this because there was a high rate of teenage pregnancy. And he thought maybe some kind of training in technology that can give them different career options might help. So he just reached out to us, on a whim. And so we went out to visit the community and then spoke to him about what we did. And we're able to design, a program. And so that's another way that we actually reach girls in communities. So through our own network of existing partners and also through communities hearing about us and reaching out to us.
Okay, awesome. And as you speak, I hear a lot about partnerships, collaborations, and all. And so, want to talk a bit about that. Has it been getting partners and collaborators on this project so far? Seems like you've been having a lot of them. Has it been easy? Are you at the place where you're like, I have all that I need to keep on going, or where are you at? And has it been?
I think it's been good. I really thank God for that. It wasn't easy at the beginning, but I think nothing is easy at the beginning. But what I realized was that, of course, at the beginning we wanted cash partnerships. People who would give us cash. But we quickly realized that number one, if you are a starter organization, most people are not going to give you cash, but they could give you like in-kind support, and we realized the value of that. So we have had a lot of partners, who support us, like with in-kind donations, whether that's facilitation, speaking, other ways, that they do that. I think that one thing that we've had to learn how to do is to be strategic about picking partners, because you will get to a point where you have a lot of organizations who come to you and want to do something. So you also need to be very savvy and be very clear about your objectives. So we had to go back. We had our mission statement, our vision statements, objectives. We had to go back and look at our theory of change and really develop a theory of change document. What is the problem we are trying to solve? How are we trying to solve it? And so we did that over several months. But by the end of that, we in the organization were all clear about what we wanted to do and how, so that when we get offers of partnerships, we can easily see that, okay, this could be a potentially good partnership, but this
No.
one is not going to work for us exactly. So we've had to, learn how to be smart about that. I don't think you can ever have too many partners, offers of partnerships, because some of
Yes.
them will not work out based on your objectives, based on your shared values as well. So I think it's great to have them. It's a validation, I think, of the work that you're doing. I would say also, like with corporate partnerships, sometimes, those, I wish those could be a bit more strategic. What we find sometimes, and I think, most NGOs will find this, is that if there's a special day coming up, International Day of the XXXXX, whatever it is, an organization who wants to get some kind of maybe like publicity in that area will reach out to you. And we don't mind that, but we would like it to be more strategic so that organizations aren't coming in at International Day of the Girl Child,
Show up.
Girls in ICT Day, those kinds of things, so that it can be something more structured, not like a one day thing, but at least you can plan over the next few years so that you can really decide what kind of impact you want to have, and then, design something that is going to help create that type of impact.
And I believe that with the structures, you've been able to, you've been getting partners that have been a bit more sustainable with this plan that you have in place. I want to believe
Yes,
that you have.
yes, yes,
Okay,
yes.
awesome. So it was really just interesting getting to hear you talk about, having structures, just having the understanding where you're headed, know what you want to do, know what you want to achieve, and it just helps you. And I like the fact that you also talked about understanding the power of in-kind partnership or
Yes.
sponsorship, because we all, many organizations, non-profits in particular, we're just looking for, give me the money,
Yeah.
let me run the project. But a number of organizations, especially if you're young, they want to know, they want to see your track record. So many of them are willing
Yes.
to support you with kind of
Yes. Yes.
donations. Thank you
Yes.
so much for sharing that. Now we want to just hear, I know that WTEC has been doing a lot for about 15 years, right? I'm certain that you have at least one interesting story, success story, as to what you've been able to achieve in the years. Do you mind sharing one of them?
Yes. We have so many. Um, so we have some of our girls who have attended our camp. There's one particular lady I'm thinking of, and she came in, and we give prizes at the end of our camp for academic performance, how well they did, and also for character as well. And she came in really shy, very quiet, didn't say much. By the end of the camp, you could see that, she had leadership potential in her. Apart from that, she was also excited about the possibility of a career in STEM.
Wow.
She ended up moving abroad to the US and studying like biomedical technology. And more importantly, she's actually come back to give back to the
Wow.
organization. So she's currently working as a researcher in that field, but she donates to WTEC. And I think for me, beyond the young ladies who have gone into STEM and tech, because there are so many of them, we have young women who are doctors, we have young women who are dentists, we have young women who are computer scientists. I think that for us, one thing that we're really, really proud of is that our girls are able to grow in confidence, and they're also able to give back as well. So we have a body called our Girl Advisory Council. It's like an arm of our board, but it's an arm of our board that is populated by alumni. So all WTech alumni. We have one of them, Monsurat, who she attended our very first after school club in 2013. She attended the camp the following year. She came back to volunteer at the camp. Then she went to university. She studied mass communication, but she was very immersed in technology. She came back. She's now working full time with WTech.
Wow.
And she's part of the Girl Advisory Council with other alumni. And then this year, they all got together to sponsor one girl to attend the camp. And I think, for me personally, I think those are the stories that, that really, really move me, because we have someone who came in and went through several of our programs, came back to volunteer, came back to work in the organization. And we actually have two alumni working in the organization right now, Montserrat and Nifesimi. Both attended the camp, both came back to volunteer, both are now working, both, supported another girl to attend the camp. And so you have that circle that goes on, so that I feel really proud that knowing that the organization, I think, has a great future. So even when I'm not ED anymore, executive director anymore, that there are other young ladies who have been impacted by the work that we're doing, and can take WTech to the next level in the years to come.
Absolutely, absolutely. Wow. Thank you so much for answering that. And I'm just excited to see the impact, and to see the fulfillment written all over your face while you were speaking about this story. So let's talk a bit about sustainability and the work that you do. Then we'll talk about your partnership with ACT Foundation. So has it been, have you been able to achieve sustainability? What's your plan? How do you intend to ensure that the impact that you have is long term and is sustainable?
So usually when you're applying for grants, if you're filling out a proposal, there'll always be a section on sustainability. And I think a lot of people just put something there, let me just fill this proposal so I can,
Yes.
get overdone and submit it. But it really causes us to really think about beyond this funding that we're applying for, how are we going to keep this program running? And partnerships, we've spoken about partnerships today. Partnerships are so important. And so, number one, we try to foster and build really, really strategic partnerships so that when we are running programs, they're not funded by just one organization or one entity, that they're funded by multiple either organizations or people. So it could be cash as well as in kind. So, for instance, we have our WTEC academies, the after school clubs. We are working in partnerships with different schools. And in most cases, the schools invite us to come. So we know we have a venue for that project, that school. So for the time that we're running it, we're working in that school. We can use their facilities, at no cost. And then in terms of things like, the light situation, fueling the generator. We also have a partnership. So we might say, oh, we can pay 50%. The school can say, okay, we can pay the other 50%, or they will pay for everything totally. Then, as we're training, we're also identifying the students who are really good and have the ability to teach others so that maybe over the years to come, they can also start to support the facilitator. After they've been through the curriculum once, they can support the facilitator in the next year. So we're seeing ways that we can build sustainability. So not just in terms of people donating cash to us to keep it going, but also having the community really buy into the program so that they're almost taking it as their own and say, okay, you know what? We'll provide the venue. Okay, we know someone who can fuel the generator, or we know a place where we can use that they have inverters. Oh, come and train members of our community, young people in our community, so that they can become the facilitators. So that way, even if we don't have any cash to give, we know that that program is going to keep on running. And so that's the strategy that we employ, in all the different places that we go to, all the different programs that we're running.
Absolutely. Wow, that's really great. You talked a lot about collaboration, and I think that collaboration is key. And of course, like you already established at the start, it's really not about the cash. It's really about the in. I think more about the in kind support
Yes,
than the
yes.
cash. Because in
Yeah.
these communities, for instance, the kind of partnerships you have with the stakeholders in the community go a long way, even when
Yes.
they are not bringing cash to the
Yes.
table.
Yes.
Wow, thank you so much. Now, our
Yeah.
final question would be about your relationship with ACT Foundation. I know at some point you had partnered with us on the project She Can with ICT.
Yes.
How would you describe your relationship with ACT Foundation, and what has been the impact of working with us on the work that you do at WTEC?
All right, okay. So ACT Foundation supported our She Can with ICT program. So we're working with young women, business women, or aspiring business women to help ground them in technology so that they can use that technology in their businesses to scale up, to increase their scope, their market size, able to do more, and also drive down their expenses. I would say that, working with ACT Foundation has been unlike any other fund that we've had because ACT Foundation has been very involved, starting from just the beginning of the relationship. After we were informed that we got the grant, then we had a very thorough onboarding. With a lot of other funders, you don't necessarily get this. Maybe you get the grant agreements, which spells out the do's and the don'ts, what we expect, But for ACT Foundation, it was beyond that. We actually had an onboarding workshop where the foundation went through what they expect, what they would like to see. And also, we also source like stories, and there were other like previous grantees. So we could also hear their own experiences as well. Then there's also, it's very structured, very organized. So you know that for your grants year, these are the milestones. These are the things that maybe you're expected to deliver. Maybe these are the events that we have coming up. And those events were, I think, a really critical part because you have like professional training opportunities for your team to attend. You have the breakfast dialogue. You have the EDs hangout. There are just so many opportunities for the grantees to learn, to develop skills. And that's really, really important because yes, we all want the money, but really beyond the money, what is actually more important is the ability to use that money well. And especially for younger organizations, we might not always know like the right way to do things, the right way to organize your finances. So, for instance, oh, I have money coming in from different grantees. It might be best to have a separate like sub account for each grantee. Just things like that that may seem really minute, but really are very important in terms of helping you be organized. Thinking about your monitoring and evaluation. That's something that a lot of organizations are so busy doing the work that sometimes it's like an afterthought, like, we have not measured our impact. So, okay, let's go back. Let's give out questionnaires, surveys, you know? So you're really thinking of the whole program in a very holistic way. You're thinking about the monitoring and evaluation before you start the program. You're building this into the design, which is what it should be. You're also thinking about how you tell your story. A lot of nonprofits also are not great at telling their story. So I know a lot of times we have been accused of this. You're doing so much, but I don't even know half of what you do. So we need to be able to, because we spend so much time in the trenches, we need to be able to like come up for air and say, you know what, this is what we've done. This is how we've measured our impact. This is the impact. These are the stories we have. You can have your stories in numbers. You can have your stories in pictures. You can have your stories in like well-written articles. And ACT Foundation really helps, organizations really think through the best way that they can tell their stories and really convey their brand essence as well. So I think it's really important. I think that for any organization, I think in Africa, because it's open to organizations, across Africa, I think it's important from the application process, you are forced to start to think through your project very deeply, not on a superficial level. In fact, once you have completed the application process, you basically have everything mapped out in terms of what you want to achieve, how you're going to measure it, down to the indicators you are going to use, down to how you're going to tell your story, down to how you're going to share the impact with your partners and, other stakeholders. So I would say that, for us, I think was really a game changer. It really upped the way that I think we did things in the organization.
Awesome. Wow. Thank you so much. Just sitting on this other side, I feel very proud for ACT Foundation.
Yes, we should be.
Yeah, thank you so much, Oreoluwa Lesi. It's been an amazing conversation, just learning a lot about what you have done as the executive director at WTEC and the impact of your work so far. I'd say well done.
Thank you.
And we know that there's so much more to do. Like I told you before we started off this conversation, I'm trying to imagine the next 20 years when it comes to technology. So I know that there's still so much. It's a very relevant field you're in. And I want to say well done. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
So there you have it, our viewers, our listeners. This has been an interesting conversation. I'm certain that you've learned a lot, whatever stage you're at, either at that stage where you're just thinking, oh, I have this passion, I want to do this, or you've started and you're very young at what you do, or you are maybe way established in what you do. I'm certain that you've learned one or two things from our conversation with Oreoluwa Lesi. Until ACTPod comes your way, stay blessed and stay happy. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to ACTPod. For inquiries and feedback, please reach us on actpod@actrustfoundation.org. Follow us on social media at ACTFoundation_ on Instagram and Twitter, and Aspire Coronation Trust Foundation on Facebook. The show is proudly powered by Aspire Coronation Trust Foundation. ACTPod, our story, our continent.